Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about what I believe, in my opinion, is the most disliked sign of the zodiac. And I'm going to, and just basically, it doesn't mean it's a real bad sign or anything like that, but there's a reason where I think there's might be more resentment toward this sign on average than the other 11 signs. So anyway, let me get started. Well, firstly, I'm going to start with Aries. Aries is a sign that can be somewhat combative. They could be provoked somewhat quickly, but they're not vindictive and they don't hold a grudge. And they have the forgive and forget philosophy. They could be good leaders. They might have an overly aggressive outlook, but but for me that it's not the most disliked sign. So anyway, let me get to the next sign. Now for Taurus. Taurus is a sign that could be associated perhaps with being somewhat obstinate and unyielding, but they do generally have an easygoing temperament until there is some strong provocation from others. They are set in their ways, but I don't think there's enough with the sign Taurus where I could say that would be the most disliked sign. Taurus is about peace and tranquility and harmony. So for those reasons, I don't go with Taurus as the most disliked sign. So the next sign, talk about Gemini. Well, Gemini can be very vacillating. They can be very changeable and mercurial, and at times they can lack persistence. But Gemini is very amicable and amiable and very easygoing, despite maybe being somewhat flighty at times. They are very friendly and they make very good communicators and really have a lot of often have a lot of good ideas and are very quick-witted and think very quickly. Now, I don't think there's anything in Gemini to say that would be the most disliked sign of all the zodiac signs. So let me get to the next sign. Well, Cancer. Well, Cancer is can be moody, can be temperamental. They can be sometimes overly emotional, insensitive, and often to unintentional slights. But when I look at the zodiac sign Cancer, they're also very sensitive about in as far as the feeling element goes, and they're often people that want to, because of their sympathetic nature, they often are there for moral support, if nothing else, or actual, or helping in some other way, shape, or form. So I don't see the zodiac sign Cancer as being the most disliked sign. Now let me go to Leo. Well, for Leo, there could be a number of reasons why we might look at that as a possibility or candidate for the most disliked sign. Leos can be domineering. They could be very overprotective. They have a very authoritative way about them, and it's not necessarily malicious, but they have a way of have that natural command and wanting to be in charge and kind of orderly, as far as, well, not orderly, but kind of an ordering type manner about them at times. And I think for those reasons, it might be a candidate for a most disliked sign, but I don't think there's enough for it to be that. Leos can also be very magnanimous and generous and very steadfast and loyal, and they're the kind of people that would give the shirt off their back for somebody. So I don't see Leo as being the most disliked sign, or zodiac sign, I should say. So let me go to the next sign. Well, for Virgo, well, as far as negative characteristics or qualities, Virgo sometimes might be a little bit pedantic or maybe somewhat persnickety. They can really, they're the kind of people, not in a malicious way often, but they can point out maybe things or flaws in somebody that they really, the other person necessarily may probably know about, and they don't really want to hear about it. The other person that they're pointing these things out to may often be cognizant of these things, but the Virgo can have that proclivity to bring those points out to somebody, and really it's just a lot of as far as that goes, and Virgo might have the tendency to also correct others on the negative side, but However, Virgo is a mutable sign, and Virgo is generally easygoing temperament, and they're not. It's not a sign that I would equate to being as the most disliked sign of the zodiac. Yes, they are neat. They can be neat freaks. They're very meticulous, but they're not enough where I see this sign as being the most disliked by others. So now I'm going to go to Libra. Well, with Libra can be rather ambivalent and indecisive. They often don't want to make waves or don't get involved in others' quarrels or disputes. But Libra can also be have the ability for reconciliation, for negotiation, for compromise, and they're generally peace loving like Taurus. So there's not enough here for me to say that it's the most disliked sign of the zodiac. Now I'm going to go to Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius is a sign that can be very blunt and outspoken with what they say, and sometimes they can be downright tactless and lack diplomacy. But Sagittarius is really a sign. I look at the fire signs as being the forgive and forget philosophy, and Sagittarius, though, they may make a blunt statement or something to somebody, but they don't. There's generally no malice behind it, at least in most cases, and they just have a tendency to be forthright. They are truth seekers, and they do like to speak the truth, and they're not necessarily worried about whether it might hurt someone's feelings or not, but it's generally not done out of malice or any animosity towards somebody. So I don't see them as far as the most disliked zodiac sign. So now let me get to Capricorn. Well, Capricorn can be very stern and serious, and sometimes they may lack that ability to be whimsical or capricious. They may take things very, very seriously and be very straight-faced. And many of you may have seen, I believe his name is John Walsh, former host of America's Most Wanted. He seems like he's a true Capricorn sun and very stern and serious disposition. But just because a Capricorn may seem to lack that ability to be flippant or jocular, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily the most disliked sign of the zodiac. Capricorn can be about organization and responsibility, and really they're just very ambitious and career oriented. So that's really more connected with the stern disposition, their seriousness more than anything else. So it's not, in my opinion, I don't think it's the most disliked sign of the zodiac. Now, let's get to the sign Aquarius. Now, Aquarius can be rather eccentric and non-conforming. Sometimes I think Aquarius just likes to be different for the sake of being different. So, when I look at the sign Aquarius, they can have that rebellious quality in them, being the iconoclast, being different for the sake of being different, and not necessarily going to conform to society's wants. But is it the most disliked sign of the zodiac? I don't think so. Aquarius can be very benign and humanitarian and really about selflessness. So that to me isn't enough to be the most disliked sign of the zodiac. Excuse me, people. Now, the next sign, Pisces. Well, Pisces on the negative side can sometimes be rather nebulous. They can be indecisive and ambivalent, and a lot of times they can lack direction in their focus in life. And really, they're not always the most realistic people, but Pisces can be very benevolent and very compassionate and have strong sensitivity to others' needs. And Pisces can be strongly emphasize and accentuate self-sacrifice in their lives. So it's not enough for me to say that it would be the most disliked sign of the zodiac. So anyway, let me get to the most disliked sign of the zodiac. I believe, in my opinion, is Scorpio. And I'm going to give you some of my reasons that I got here that I think might be the most disliked sign of the zodiac. Well, Scorpio, on a positive side, they a lot of times they have the ability to emerge victorious over their adversaries, and I think that could be a reason for resentment. They have a very indomitable will and spirit, and their willpower may be unsurpassed on average compared to the other 11 signs. They also can be known for their biting sarcasm, can be very caustic and sardonic with some of their statements they make, and I think that could be bothersome to some people. And their comebacks can be very quick and spontaneous, and they can hit you with that Scorpio sting, so to speak. Now, also Scorpio as an enemy obviously can be very difficult to outmaneuver or outmanipulate. Scorpio has that ability to outmaneuver and outmanipulate their enemies in most cases. So, in enemies, generally they wind up tripping themselves up ultimately, and I think that's why you get a lot of this animosity maybe towards Scorpio for that reason. And what's ironic is that jealousy a lot of times can be synonymous with that sign Scorpio. But I think a lot of people are actually, whether they realize it or not, may be jealous of Scorpio for a number of the reasons that I listed, that I already explained. Now, they can also, Scorpio, though, can be somewhat domineering, and I think Scorpio can really have that strong power syndrome. I don't want to say control freak, but I think Scorpio can have that strong ability to want to have that power, to want to control things, and that could be others as well. And now, and also the fact that they might be overly secretive and mysterious, and it takes a lot for them to allow others into their lives. And I think what happens is Scorpio can also be a sign that can come on very powerful and strong to others, and they may inadvertently not necessarily rump over somebody, but really kind of bowl their way over a person, and they might not always be cognizant of their power and their strength. And sometimes that power, Scorpio can also be very imposing and intimidating, especially Scorpio rising people. And I think that they might not necessarily be trying to be that way, but just something about their natural presence makes them that way. So for those reasons, this is not a knock on Scorpio per se, but this is just as far as others' perception, as far as the signs that they like. I think Scorpio could very well be the most disliked sign. So in my opinion, it would be. Now you can go online and you'll find a wide divergence of answers to this. This is very subjective, and everyone, of course, has their opinion on this. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for the most disliked sign of the zodiac. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.